Dragon Ogres. Let's learn about them.
This week it is Dragon Ogres.
Yeah, shockingly, Dragon Ogres.
Jokingly, yeah.
I don't like this. Oh wait, hang on. Let me 1 sec. There you guys go. There is the Dragon Ogre. I don't like it. I can't say I am a fan.
It's an electrifying subject. I would like to take you all the way back to 1980. I'm going to guess 8. Well before many of you were born. Oh, god damn it, I'm old. A white dwarf arrived. It's the one with the casket of...
I want to like read some of the White Dwarf articles. Does anyone in chat actually know where like I could like find that, like those stories and those tales? Are they like posted anywhere? Because I've heard there's a lot of like good content, like early content that was in the White Dwarf, but I just don't know where they are. Warhammer Plus, so I have to subscribe to like read them? Lame. I just want to read for fun. I already buy the books. Well, pseudo own them via Audible. This stream is not sponsored, by the way. How else is GW supposed to make money? Miniatures. They make buckets and buckets of money off their miniatures. Real talk. I do think Warhammer Plus is a touch overrated. Not really a hot take. It's not worth the subscription, in my opinion. That's a shame. I guess I can get a subscription and then binge everything, but I really don't have time when I stream now, so.
Souls on the cover. And in the back of this particular White Dwarf, in the heavy metal section, was the first ever Dragon Ogre. Painted in browns and reds, leathery skin.
Ew. Ew, he leaves much to be desired, in my opinion. Ooh.
Dragon bottom half, ogre top half. Now, I remember back then looking at this going, fuck yeah, I want one of these. And I'll admit, it wasn't because the model was so cool, which it was. I just looked at his stats.
We are two different people, because I look at this model and I'm like, it's a model. Dragon Ogre, it looks like my ex-girlfriend. Oh. Yikes. Oh, what did she do to you, man? I can think of a couple people I don't like, but I'd never call him a Dragon Ogre. Man, who hurt you? All VTubers are actually Dragon Ogres behind the screen? No comment.
That's and went, oh yeah! I want one of those for me. It's fair to say that Dragon Ogres, somewhat appropriately, have never really changed. The Dragon Ogres would be this hoary old remnant, this almost unchanging thing. They had their own names for themselves, and these names were laid out in the old Warhammer fashion, in that the basic one was a Dragon Ogre, a level 5 hero was called, as I recall, a Sharkath, and a Sharkath became, in later editions, the core name for the Dragon Ogres for themselves. A level 10 hero was called a Garthor, a level 15 was called a Darkoth. Yes, I'm bringing out my memory here. Can't remember level 20. No, Sharonok. Sharonok is level 20, and the level 25 was the ancient ones, the Shaggoth. And these names will pop up again a couple of times in various sources. A few pieces of artwork, they were done by Adrian Smith.
See, I like the way this looks better than the mini. It's still a hideous combination, but I would say that's probably intended.
One of which was just a Dragon Ogre full page looking fucking epic. Our Dragon Ogres were immediately pitched as an effectively immortal species that can only die in war. And the reason for this was because they'd made a pact with the Chaos Gods.
Wow.
So before the Chaos Gods themselves rise up, they make a pact. And one particular Dragon Ogre is responsible for that pact.
That's kind of a good deal.
Makes the deal. He is marked out and named as a Shaggoth, the oldest, most hoary Dragon Ogres that existed before the old ones arrived. And they largely were at war at this point with the rulers of the world, the dragons. And it was a war they were losing. And because they were
Oh.
losing, they made a pact with the dark gods. They didn't just make a deal for their souls.
See, I think these are supposed to be the Dragon Ogres, but they don't look nearly as bad. They look kind of cool. With their hoof. I like the hooves. I think that's superior.
They made a bargain, and the bargain was, we will end the world for you. We will bring it to an end, and when we do, our souls come back. As long as you stop us losing this particular war.
Wow.
So the Dragon Ogres themselves at this point have sold their souls. They will fight for chaos, and they do. The biggest one goes to sleep. Indeed, they often go to sleep. The older they get, the more they sleep.
That sounds like me. Sounds like me. I often go to sleep as well.
Goes to sleep. Indeed, they often go to sleep. The older they get, the more they sleep. And the older they get, the bigger they get. And that's a really important fact, because the old Shaggoths are actually huge. The original Dragon Ogre is said to be the size of a mountain, and indeed, that's cool largely confirmed when you take a look at what happened with Archaon when he pretty much met him.
Okay, I think I know what my concern was. I'm sorry, I'm really judging a book by its cover here. I like this more muscly build. It looked really scrawny before in the dragon part of the Dragon Ogre. But this is, he got chonk. He got muscle. It looks... Goodness, chat. That looks like my sister? Holy moly. Dang, chat is a bit sassy today. Oh my goodness.
Accidentally mistaking him for a mountain. He will not wake up until the end times, when the end of the world is coming. So good old Ragnarok, he goes to sleep. It was 10,000 years back. So the deal took place 3,000 years before the actual cataclysm. Long before the cataclysm that the Chaos Gods made this deal. And that gives you an idea of what the world was like back then. So already the Chaos Gods are stirring. Deals are in a potential the world was like back then. So already the Chaos Gods are stirring. Deals are in a potential being made. And the war with the dragons that the Dragon Ogres are having, their kin, is ongoing at this point. But we also know that the old ones will arrive, and that the old ones will also be doing their attempts to purge the planet when they move the world from its icy position, pulled it in closer. And as it did, the Dragon Ogres got more tired, because during the warm months, they get slumberous. When the summer days grow long and the sun burns mercilessly down from dawn to dusk, the Dragon Ogres withdraw to their caves under the mountain. Icy, cold creatures. They prefer the cold, they prefer winter. The older ones will sleep for scores, hundreds, or even thousands of years. The movement of the world closer to the sun could be the event that made the Dragon Ogres go, we can't cope anymore. We're dying. To begin with, they were throughout every mountain chain and system, not just in the old world, but throughout the world. They eventually all move up towards the Chaos Wastes, into the mountains up there, coming out only when thunder and lightning come. Storm clouds gather in and lightning strike, that the Dragon Ogres would be drawn out.
The thing is, the Dark Gods literally send lightning to them to wake them up. I don't think you would ever see them without a Tempest.
That is a terrible alarm clock. Have you ever been woken up at night by like a thunderstorm? It's not fun. Your heart's racing, your heart's pounding. I would not recommend. I'd be pretty pissed too if I got woken up by a thunderstorm. I can't blame them.
Very first descriptions of the great storms coming in the depths of winter, and the Dragon Ogres awakening, and depending upon just how dark that storm was, just how violent, depends on how old the Dragon Ogres that awoke would be. And if it's a truly, truly massive storm, many of them would awaken, and they would fight each other, because they would fight each other to be the ones that represented the Chaos Gods. Now, I'm not saying that they were dying, but they were definitely warring with each other, and they'd go up, and the one that did best is the one that would be struck directly by the Chaos Gods as a reward for having successfully rised to the very peaks themselves, and then they would become a champion of the gods, because the Chaos Gods are following their actions, and they are purposely trying to get the best of them to do something on their behalf.
Do they get perks?
Called upon, and if you call upon them too often, they'll say no.
The Dark Gods are the only
That's amazing. They're the only race that can say no to the Chaos Gods. The Chaos Gods like, hey, can you go get me a latte? And they're like, no. Screw you.
Viable force that can wake them up. And they are not hesitant, but they are cautious about calling on them. They don't want to wake them up too much, in the fear that they might just say no, because they're so strong and powerful that the Dark Gods like really want them to participate. They don't just want to smite them. That's a waste of a way too valuable resource, and they might not even be able to smite them.
You've got the further issue as well, that if you have a limited number of them, if, for example, they are sterile, as various sources have suggest, and there are no more coming, if that is the case, then they are a finite resource. And if your plan, even if it's twisted and fucked up and you're a dark god and who knows how they think, they are very much inscrutable. But if your plan is loosely bring down the world, you're only going to use them at the point.
So the Dragon Ogres are energized if they're hit by lightning. So it's like their 5-hour energy. It's like taking a shot of espresso. I'm being a bit facetious, but that's what it makes me think of.
Inscrutable. But if your plan is loosely bring down the world, you're only going to use them at the point when you actually think you can.
Yeah, I personally love the sterile storyline. There is a quote in the 2nd edition bestiary by one of the Dragon Ogres where the Dragon Ogre posits that Tzeentch seems to blame Tzeentch in particular for the sterilization, and posits the idea that Tzeentch found the idea quite literally amusing, that they traded one form of immortality for another. They traded racial immortality, being that you have further generations of your kind, for individual immortality, where we cannot die. And for some of the Dragon Ogres, being like, I think Kolek and Krakenrock, this is an awesome deal. I think they are the kind where they do not care about progeny, they care about themselves. For others of the Dragon Ogres, this genuinely comes off as a very existential crisis, and a very sad one.
Oh, that's
Many of the Dragon Ogres are
like the
genuinely pushing for the destruction of the world. Yes. They're not pushing for like any particular victory. They want the world to end. It's implied that many of them don't even think they're going to survive it. They're just tired, and they don't want to be doing this anymore.
Cool. I think it's a really cool aspect
too,
to them, that
man.
they're looking to end the world because that ends their deal with the gods. And that's why they're so damn desperate to finally end it all. Because either A, they can now die in natural term, or perhaps they can now have their own progeny, perhaps they can continue. Who knows exactly what it is? And I think not having answers to that and having it being somewhat of a mystery, having this very species itself be very difficult to plumb into the details for, is one of the things that makes them so attractive. It's one of the things that makes them so freaking cool.
You have to remember that the Dark Gods are crazy. A trap that sometimes I find people fall in.
I'm sorry, how do you forget the Dark Gods are crazy? Is it just me? I feel like I don't forget that they're crazy.
When they ask questions about chaos, is they try and rationalize why chaos does what chaos does. Chaos don't play that way. The Dark Gods,
they just do.
They are not mortals. They have no concept of mortality, and they often will do things that screw themselves.
The Chaos Gods are their own worst enemies, particularly Tzeentch, an entity that may not even be, as we understand it, a god. It could just be a fragmented lattice work of 1,000 broken billion minds all acting and interacting in different ways.
And you could argue, oh, it's part of a greater plan, but I really think that gives them too much credit.
That they went to the Chaos Gods and said, look, in your weakness, we will help you. And that deal was the Dragon Ogres were losing a battle and they were about to be extinctified. They knew they were reaching an end. And their most powerful member, the most massive of Dragon Ogres, made a deal on behalf of his entire species.
So in Warhammer, there's kind of an ideology of like progenitors of races tend to have authority over their offspring and can make deals that pass down. First of a lineage can make a bargain that affects everything that comes after them. Making a bargain with the Dark Gods,
that's rough.
And
I'd hate
functionally
that.
Selling yourself to them often means that you lose value, because once you've made that deal, they get you to sign the contract. They're like, all right, you're not fun.
I once saw a Redditor unironically call the Chaos Gods loving. I mean, I could see how they would appreciate some of their followers or members, and you could argue that Grandfather Nurgle loves you, but like, what? No, they don't. They don't care about you. They don't care about you. Khorne loves blood. You're right. Khorne is loving. He is loving the spilling of blood. You're correct. You're correct. Yeah, that's a cursed take. I don't agree with that
anymore. Once you've made that deal, they get you to sign the contract. They're like, all right, you're not fun anymore. We've got you. That's the case for the Famir. The Famir made a bargain with the Dark God, and that bargain did not work out for them. The Dark Gods got bored with them and were basically like, I don't want to play with you anymore. Insert Toy Story meme. What's interesting about the Dragon Ogres is that they made this bargain, yet they are not thrown away. I think it actually could be fairly well argued that as far as mortals go, like non-demons, the Dragon Ogres are probably the most highly valued pieces the Dark Gods have.
Yes,
Dang.
I would argue that they are not Chaos troops. What I would argue is that they are people who have been bound to a deal, and if they fail, they then are fallen. They are more allies of Chaos. They have made a choice, and their choice was, we will fight for Chaos in return for... We don't know exactly what the deal was. We just have they made a pact so that they could survive. But the nature of Dragon Ogres is that they're probably already effectively immortal anyway. So the pact was probably to help them survive through the end of whatever particular war that they were dealing with. And in return, the Chaos Gods asked for the world to be destroyed, which means that the Dragon Ogres almost certainly believe that they will survive that. Their immortality.
That's quite a concept to me.
Also got the fact that they're possibly sterile, although that lore drifts up and down in different places. There's also the possibility they have no real gender, in that there's never really been a female Dragon Ogre really mentioned anywhere. They have made a pact with Chaos. They have not sold their souls to Chaos.
Despite their bargain, despite they've made a deal with the Dark Gods, there's no wiggling out of it. Even though there's some really cool notes in the lore about how some of them do want to wiggle out of it, but they know they can't. They are the most valued pieces the Dark Gods have. Like, the Dark Gods they are not casual about using Dragon Ogres. They don't just throw them away. They are only really used in important conflicts. If you see a Dragon Ogre on the battlefield, you know some serious shit is going down. And that's just like a regular one. Like, if you see a whole group of them, or a Shaggoth, for God's sakes, like, you're dealing with an incursion at that point. It is not a regular warband anymore. Something that's super interesting about the Dragon Ogres is that they are one of the only units in Warhammer Fantasy history that actually migrated factions. There was a big split. Chaos used to be a unified book. There used to just be like Chaos. And then there was a split into the Hordes of Chaos and the Beasts of Chaos. And the Beasts of Chaos were all of your beastmen and creatures of the forest and creatures that seem to just kind of be allied with Chaos. The Dragon Ogres were interestingly put over there. And then the Hordes of Chaos were all of your human mortals, the creatures that they controlled and rode into battle, and the demons. The Dragon Ogres were originally part of the Beasts of Chaos, and there's a mention in the book that it seems the main reason for that is the Dragon Ogres refuse to serve under the demons. They don't want to serve any demonic masters because they are genuinely worried that their souls will be put at risk if they associate with full-on embodiments of the Dark Gods.
Demons are walking corruption. They are a walking perversion of everything that is the material realm, and we have more than one example in the lore where Dragon Ogres are expressly stating, and they're fiercely independent, that they have no interest at all on working with or directly dealing with demons. So there's a suggestion there that not only do they not like them, but there's a reason they don't like them, and the reason is probably the most obvious reason: they can corrupt, which does suggest that Dragon Ogres can corrupt in one fashion or another, and one of the reasons for their fierce independence is to ensure that that does not happen to them any further. What remains of their souls, they are keen to keep hold of. That being the case, I do not think that they are being particularly impressed with them. Indeed, they may have hard-coded into their little letter, their little deal with the Chaos Gods.
Yeah, demons.
You will not ever work alongside them.
Yeah, I could actually see Dragon Ogres, because being immortal and all this stuff, highly valuing their minds and in a sense their sanity, and not tolerating demons. I imagine they would either stay very far away from them or they would kill them if the demon continued to be an annoyance. So going back to the deal, what is said is that the Dragon Ogres gathered up and made contact somehow with the Dark Gods, and they had a meeting. They struck a bargain, and apparently it was not a simple thing. This probably lasted for days, if not weeks.
I imagine it probably lasted even longer, given the nature of how Dragon Ogres perceive time, where they view the entirety of human civilization as nothing more than a recent growth of mold that has spread around and caterwauled in the distance, screaming and braying like a bunch of small animals. They don't even really perceive the entire passing of an age of humanity as more than a blip. So
That's
yeah, it wouldn't
crazy
surprise
to
me if
think
it's
about.
something that was drawn out, slow, and eventually plugged into place.
Because of the nature of their bargain with Chaos, it is very strongly suggested that they are not fully committed to Chaos. They don't really give a shit about the Dark Gods. They don't really seem to worship them. A lot of the time, it's just that they're like, all right, we made a pact, we have to fulfill it, but that's it. Don't call me when I'm off shift at work. I'm not going to pick up. Like, I made a commitment. I will fulfill that commitment, but I will do nothing beyond that. But there are some among the Dragon Ogres who I think
I love that. They're boundary setters.
Genuinely revel in what they're doing. Kolek being one of them. And we know that Kolek Sun Eater plays a very key part in it. The whole reason Kolek is called the Sun Eater is apparently his part in the bargain was so horrible and so blasphemous that the sun will not look upon him ever again. It refuses to look at him. So wherever he goes, he is covered by an endless storm, which works very awesome for him. Yeah. That's why he's called the Herald of the Tempest, is because wherever he goes, he heralds a tempest because there's an endless storm following him around. Nature itself rebukes him. What the hell did he do? What actually happened in that bargain? But the trailer for the Warriors of Chaos introduction into Total War Warhammer features Kolek Sun Eater talking. He's talking to, he's kind of breaking the fourth wall, but he's talking to humans, and he's saying, our origins are unknowable. You can't comprehend why we do the things that we do.
Understand our origins, our motives. We are not fallen.
Oh. Oh, he's dead.
Fallen. I am ascended. I am better than you. I am a god. He's a very arrogant prick, but
I feel like he should be bigger. Like, he seems like ancient and like legendary type Dragon Ogre. I feel like he should be monstrous in size, much bigger than that.
Also is not entirely wrong. Some of the Dragon Ogre Shaggots, like Kolek, are incredibly old. Kolek, to my knowledge of the characters we have in Total War Warhammer, he is the oldest character there is. Wow. He's even older than Lord Croak, because he has been around since before the old ones, before any of the Dragon Children.
That's
probably
crazy.
The only character we actually know in Total War who's older than him is like the Celestial Dragon Emperor himself and Krakenrock the Black. Way back, we're talking like probably before the foundation of the Empire. A collection of the most powerful living High Elf Saphirian lore masters got together, tracked Kolek down in the wastes, and they imprisoned him within a glacier. And it's not just any glacier.
He is the Avatar. He is the last airbender.
It's a super special extra magic glacier that cannot be tampered with or destroyed by any mundane means. It is frozen utterly. And Kolek stays there for a super fucking long time, which is why Kolek Sun Eater doesn't actually play a role in much of the story. He's gone for thousands of years until he's finally woken up by the mad sorcerer Malefix. And Malefix finds Kolek Sun Eater and actually unleashes an insanely powerful spell that summons a firestorm down on top of Kolek's glacier, and it melts him out. And Kolek busts out in, I want to say 1730 of the Imperial calendar, only a few hundred years ago. And he just goes on a rampage. He revels so much in war that Kolek gathers around him legions, armies, where he actually lives in the World's Edge Mountains. He doesn't hang out up in the Chaos Waste like most of the Dragon Ogres, in a really big crater. And he has a full-on cult where Kolek is worshipped as a mountain god, to the extent that Kolek even charged his followers with equipping him with a suit of brass armor, all the better to draw lightning towards him. It talks about there are hundreds, if not thousands of humans that worship him, and they all gather upon the mountaintops and they fall to their knees and they make worships and offerings until Kolek finally wakes up. What's really interesting about Kolek is he does not ignore the people that worship him. He has a literal horde that he acknowledges, and they follow in his shadow, which is genuinely very spooky, because that means he has a very different relationship with other followers of Chaos than most other Dragon Ogre Shaggots do. While Kolek is arrogant, he's not so independent, so to speak, in that he has followers who fashioned him armor and helped him make his big fucking hammer, which is Star Crusher. They believe him.
Yeah, that's a pretty sweet deal. I wouldn't ignore them either. I'd be like, yeah, you guys are cool. I guess you can hang out with me. It's like a older and younger sibling. The older sibling like Hey, get me this drink from the fridge. Thank you, bro. I guess you can hang out, watch me play video games.
To be a literal god of a mountain or a living mountain because he's fucking massive. Kolek Suneater is so big that he was the Attack on Titan meme before Attack on Titan was created. Kolek made his big debut as far as like much of the wider world is concerned at Prague. Laying siege to the city, Asvar Kul, big bad ever chosen, managed to pull Kolek into his side, which is impressive, but he isn't ever chosen. And the siege was not necessarily going poorly, but also wasn't going great. Prague had lasted against many different Chaos Hordes over a very long period of time. It had really big walls. The Hordes of Chaos were having a hard time getting through it. There's this huge storm, right? He's the Herald of the Tempest. No one could see anything. It's a huge blizzard. He's believed to almost be a spirit of winter because whenever he shows up, because the Tempest, there's often a blizzard around him and you can't see him, which is extra terrifying. When he showed up at the walls, they look up and all of a sudden they see this thing looking over the walls at them, and he raises up Star Crusher and he brings it down with a single blow and obliterates the wall of Prague.
Okay,
which is
that goes
amazing.
Pretty fucking cool. That's what that is.
Yeah, it is cool.
And then he forces himself into the city and the Hordes of Chaos pour in after him. And of course, Prague is utterly fucked at that point. Kolek is noted to hate other gods. And I think it's because he's jealous. Kolek actually goes on a rampage throughout the temple district of Prague, where he goes out of his way to tear down and destroy every single temple of every single god he can find. He wipes them all out, smashes all of them, and then, and only then, does he turn around and leave. He doesn't stay for all of the festivities. He doesn't stay for Asvar Kul's big ritual that turns Prague into a literal hellscape. He just leaves.
He's
He
a
fulfilled his
businessman.
part of the bargain.
This is an individual who is working according to his own interests, his own desires, and yes, he has a job to do, but when it's done, he's done.
Like, fuck you guys, I'm out of here. Which I'm sure Kul would have loved to have had Kolek at the Siege of Kislev.
Oh yeah.
That probably would have made
I mean,
huge difference.
yes. I think there's another Dragon
Yeah.
Ogre that we need to bring up, because this is another Dragon Ogre that, like Kraken Rock, the black is not necessarily the first Dragon Ogre. There's another option, Skaranarak. Now, you might not know Skaranarak. Skaranarak is a Dragon Ogre that was first mentioned in the Life of Sigmar, one of Black Library. In fact, I do have a copy of that one here. Good old Life of Sigmar.
Mhm.
According to Life of Sigmar, which is definitely not Sigmarite propaganda, almost every single person in the Empire knows what a Dragon Ogre is, because their holy texts refer to them, because Sigmar faced one. Skaranarak was plaguing the Burgundians. For those of you who don't know your ancient Sigmarite tribes, that's modern-day Averland. And Sigmar wants to bring the Burgundians to his side as allies, in particular to help end the good old battle over at Blackfire Pass. He has approached the king of the Burgundians and said, hey, give us a hand. And let's cut a long story short. The deal was made that if you get rid of this problem, we'll come and join
That's
you.
a big
The problem
problem.
was a giant fucking Dragon Ogre. We're not talking a small one here. We're talking about Sigmar wandering up to the mountain, seeing a fuck-off huge cave, going, okay, fair enough. Wanders into the cave and finds Skaranarak asleep. And Sigmar comes creeping in. Sigmar saw what he was quite convinced was a noble, massive, terrifying creature with skeletons littering everywhere. He starts creeping up and the Chaos Gods say, yeah, fuck no, and the storms come rolling in. Lightning starts crashing. And just as Sigmar's thinking, maybe I should give him a big bop with me hammer, Skaranarak awakens. Now, Skaranarak is expressly stated to be the founder of all Dragon Ogres. You could argue that this is an example of where we can clearly say maybe there is a female one, and this is it. So we now have ourselves what can only be described as an epic fight. This fucking fight went on for days as they're cracking away with hammer. He obviously doesn't need a snack. He doesn't just stop off and say, give us a moment, until eventually we all know who's going to win this because it's fucking Sigmar.
Yeah.
He eventually bops that Dragon Ogre in the face and cuts out part of one of its teeth and drags that back to the Burgundians to show they killed
Okay,
the
that's
whole
metal.
host of temples that were dedicated to that fight, called the last Skaranarak temples, that were added into the second edition Tome of Salvation book. But interestingly, Sigmar only took one single fang to prove he'd done it. But what he could have done is said, hey, come with me and let's go back and look at this enormous corpse.
Yeah.
He doesn't do that. In terms of artifacts that we have definitely known to have survived, one claw and one fang surviving. One claw that lives in the last Skaranarak temple. I know it's there, I wrote it. One fang that lives in the original founding Burgundian city, which isn't a city, it's a tiny village actually, with a big fang that's been sitting out with the elements for pretty much forever. Still unchanged because Dragon Ogres never fucking die.
Are you telling me there's a massive Dragon Ogre corpse in the mountains for necromancers to get at? Could be.
Yeah, he's
No, no,
I
no,
think Sigmar
no,
would have been
no.
a damn fool not to find a way to collapse that cave on top of that thing. Just
Yeah,
to be sure.
and I think that's
Oh,
very
that'd be
likely
so
that
bad.
trapped in a cave somewhere there is either a living or a dead one. Who's to say that it didn't survive it?
One of the things that's talked about a lot is that the Dragon Ogres sleep for super long periods of time. So long, in fact, that it's talked about in the lore that they have dreams. And for the Dragon Ogres, their dreams are so vivid that to them, the worlds they're in when they're dreaming, many of them believe that is reality. And that when they're awake in the Warhammer world, that is when they are dreaming, that they are pulled into a dream. There's even like one suggestion that one of the reasons they're able to be so cruel and awful and just like waylays to everything before them without a care of the world and actively push for the destruction of everything is because they don't believe the world is real.
Yeah.
They think it's a dream that
Oh.
they're just pushing to its natural conclusion so that they can go back to being awake in the real world.
Yeah, I really like this one. It's had
Oh,
by
that's
T.S. Looker
interesting.
for the second edition bestiary for Warhammer Fantasy Roleplay. Draws upon the general cosmology of Warhammer in that we're aware that there's this great loose connection in the greater cosmology between everything, and that certain entities have managed to bridge or find their way through that. And you just get that idea that these Dragon Ogres are something bigger, something deeper, and that their essences, their actual lives, are held in a completely different place, and that the material bodies that they have on the Warhammer world are nothing more than a material component of something far bigger and far more exceptional. Again, perhaps leading to the decision to make a deal with the Chaos Gods rather than not. And that in itself is fascinating. The Chaos Gods bridge between the Warhammer world and the 40K realm, and indeed any other realm that Games Workshop decides to make up.
If you check out the
Right.
Warhammer Fantasy Roleplay second edition book, the Tome of Corruption,
Over Corruption, that's a
there's a-
book I developed.
yeah, really cool segment
Aren't we?
about how there are some Norscan tribes that believe real life is just a dream and that dying in battle is how you kind of ascend from the
I
dream.
forgot that was even in there.
Yeah, that
Oh,
actually
that's
ties
wild.
directly into the Dragon Ogres, and it suggests there may be a relationship, like the Dragon Ogres may have inspired some elements of Norscan religion, but the Dragon Ogres may view the same situation, that dying
Yeah, I
in
quite like
battle is waking up from the dream. One of the things I really like about that Life of Sigmar quote that you talked about, that I think is true for a lot of Dragon Ogres, is they're very heavily implied to have warrior spirits. Of that, when they wake up and they go to war, they feel alive in conflict. Many of the Dragon Ogres genuinely loathe their existence except for when they're fighting. That Dragon Ogre has lived for so long and is just waiting to die, except for when he fights. When something actually has the possibility of killing him and he's fighting
He's
for his
excited.
life, that's when he feels most alive. There's stakes. Man, that makes immortality sound like it really sucks.
Yeah, it does,
In
honestly.
the Storm of Magic book, all the monsters that are being presented in that book to summon up and have wizards control, but Dragon Ogres don't really fit that because they're not really bindable creatures. They can't really be controlled, but they add an extra little detail in there saying that some sorcerers, particularly one Cabal, had found a method of controlling them by using lightning to drive them into frenzies and directing them towards others.
I love that so much because it actually had a rule as well. They had the shackled by lightning rule, so they counted as permanently frenzied.
Yeah.
Oh,
and that's fun.
But how wise are they? Like, if you somehow found a calm and clear-minded Dragon Ogre, how would the conversation go? Probably really interesting. They are very, very wise. They're exceedingly wise. They just don't really like the world very much.
Yeah, but we've got a bit of an issue with Dragon Ogre because we've got Dragon Ogres that are obviously much younger because they're smaller. So do consider that. We have an issue with procreation because of that too. And so the idea they can't procreate makes no actual sense when you examine it. It's why I always say the myth of they can't procreate. It just doesn't make sense. There must be clutches or new ones being born somehow. You have younger ones.
okay,
But
okay.
even the younger
makes
ones,
sense.
as they're generally presented, ancient as far as most are concerned,
Mhm.
wise, and quite beyond the material concerns of the other species. So it's not so much that you could have a clever conversation with them. Yes, you could. It's just that they probably have zero interest or care in doing so.
It kind of goes with like Throg, right? Like Throg the Troll King is terrifying and awful and kills people and vomits on them, whatever. But Throg sometimes gets bored. If you come across him, he'll chat with you because he's got nothing better to do. There is a unlikely chance that could happen with the Shaggoth. Because you have to remember, most of the time
Be
they're asleep. When they
careful.
wake up, it's usually
Oh, I got my
because they've
Gotrek
been
and
woken up for a
Felix.
reason. So they're gonna go off and fight and then go back to sleep. But if you got super fucking lucky, then yeah, you could probably chat with one.
Some would. To speak of the species as being this monolithic entity, as in they're all the same, is a complete nonsense. Individuals, no matter of how alien their mindsets are going to be occurring in a variety of different ways. So some of them will be waxing lyrical about their state of affairs, where others will be closed-lipped and not caring. The gamut of different relationships that you could have with them was probably wide, but given the nature of their characters, it's probably only a very small number that would be interested in those sort of conversations.
Yeah, what's interesting is that there's actually a note, it's only in the second edition book, which just introduces a lot of really cool ideas, that says that some, if not all, of the Dragon Ogres are capable of essentially astral projecting, where their spirits or their consciousness is able to roam the world.
They're just more and more busted the more I'm like hearing here.
And see what's going on, because it talks about that when the Dragon Ogres wake up, they're surprisingly knowledgeable about what's going on. One of the really interesting that it introduces is you can have a Dragon Ogre that has seen some interesting things and might recognize someone from a potential nation or something that he sees, and he goes, oh, I want to talk to this person for whatever reason.
Yeah, totally.
The Dragon Ogres and the Ogres actually hate the fuck out of each other.
Do not like.
There's actually a whole...
I'm the true ogre. There can only be one.
Whole segment in the Ogre Kingdom's army books dedicated to the Dragon Ogres. When the Ogre Kingdoms initially got pushed out of their ancestral lands because Great Maw happened, they went into the ancient giant lands and eventually Mountains of Morn. They found out the mountains were already occupied by the Dragon Ogres, and the Dragon Ogres and the Ogres had these fucking colossal fights. The second they laid eyes on each other, they were like, fuck that guy, I'm gonna kill him and eat him. And it got ugly. Even by the standards of Chaos and Ogres, the war was considered ugly. Because you had Shaggots waking up and all of these big storms. They won the war and they pushed the Dragon Ogres out. But there is a bitter relationship there. I would say even more bitter than the modern Dragon Ogres and the Dragons have.
The bitterness is probably one way, because for the vast majority of the Ogres, it will be outside living memory. The Ogres are not exactly known for their great historical record. They do an awful lot of oral telling of tales. There's going to be a memory of it, but it's not going to carry the same weight of bitterness that will lie on the other side. Because if we are speaking about a species that has a finite number, there will have been deaths, and big deaths. And this will be something that will upset not just the Dragon Ogres, but those whom the Dragon Ogres have a deal with. It's potentially one of the biggest events for their entire species in terms of the impact that it has.
For the Dragon Ogres, that was probably one of the greatest tragedies or catastrophes for their race.
Defo.
They lost a lot in that fight. Those mountain ranges seem to be kind of ideal for them. Like, they're some of the largest mountain ranges in the world.
They probably are the biggest.
And they had been there forever.
Yeah. In the beginning, there were Dragon Ogres, and these Dragon Ogres lived in an icy, horrible wasteland of a planet. And eventually, these Dragon Ogres fall into a mighty war with the dragon. This is a war that they do not fare well in. The old ones come, and when the old ones come, they move the world, and they move it from being an icy hellhole into the Warhammer world that we all know and love today. This is not an environment that suits the Dragon Ogres as well as they had before. And it's quite clear that probably the end that the Dragon Ogres fear now almost certainly is going to come to pass. They become so desperate that they reach out to the Chaos Powers, or the Chaos Powers reach out to them. And 10,000 years ago, from the point when the world ended, a deal was made between the Chaos Gods and the Dragon Ogres. This was not a deal, a pact where they sold their souls off towards Chaos and said, we are yours forever. Actually, it was much more like a deal between peers. You could almost see the Dragon Ogres as so old, so ancient, and so powerful that the Chaos Gods themselves needed their help. And they, the Chaos Gods, wanted to end the world. That was their plan. They agreed to this particular pact. The Dragon Ogres are now changed. They become something new. And approximately 1,000 to 2,000 years later, that plan starts with the Cataclysm. It takes ages. This is not something that happens immediately, because we know the date of the Cataclysm, and it wasn't 10,000 years ago. Given by the dates that we have in the most recent army lists, the deal was made long before the Cataclysm begun. The Cataclysm occurs, the Dragon...
So they just wanted to have an ace up their sleeve, pretty much.
Ogres fight on the side of Chaos, and the Dragon Ogres will continue to return to be the great whetstone, if we will, for the Chaos forces, in that they stand as a challenge to be beaten and will hone the forces of Chaos to eventually wipe out the real world.
I want to know if there are any other individuals or groups that have like killed dragon ogres. Like, we obviously know Sigmar killed one and a very big one, but like, are there stories of other dragon ogres being like killed? I think that's like the one question I have in all this.
They also arrive with each ever chosen and agree to fight under certain circumstances. And they do certain things as each ever chosen makes its attempt to end the world. They don't succeed 12 times. They do succeed on the 13th. And on the 13th time, all the dragon ogres awaken. Every single last one of them.
Every single one.
Across the
Your
world.
host,
Lightning crashes, blackened skies, full of lightning and Azir and all the rest of it. As dragon ogres, indeed, according to one legend, even the dead dragon ogres, return, the world is ended, and boom, the deal comes to an end, and the dragon ogres are now free to be their own thing. And apparently, they pop off to the realm of Azir and have a happy old time there until fucking Sigmar comes along and screws with their shit. Screw that guy. So there's one way to summarize all of that. The dragon ogres have got no clear description of having, for example, any faith, any gods outside of the chaos gods and the deal that they've made with those. They've got no description of their culture beyond the fact that they sleep and they wake up and they fight. So there's a great lacking of any official information.
The dreaming concept of that, they have these alternate worlds that they're in that they dream.
That's a good one.
And supposedly, like, these dreams are consistent enough that when they go back to sleep, they return to that same place.
I
so
wish
there's
I could
almost
do
a
that.
real interesting question there of, is it a dream? Or is it something more?
After all, to us, Warhammer is nothing more than a big made-up world.
Yeah, so
The dragon ogres are us.
yeah.
Oh,
The Dragon Ogres are Games Workshop. Everything makes sense now. But
Silly.
no wonder they rushed the end times out. They're like, finally, we can get this over with.
We can
actually
die.
made it the whole time, which is surprising. Me and Andy did not
Indeed.
think that was going to happen.
Before this stream started, we were half convinced we wouldn't have enough to talk about because there's only a few pages of actual proper lore about the dragon ogres. But a couple of characters on top of that, a few extra stories. It's surprising just how much you can discuss. I would like to say thanks for everyone who turned up, and I would also like to say, if you haven't subscribed to this channel, frickin' subscribe already.
Please.
That's what we're here for.
Smash
And
that
make sure
like and subscribe.
and press all those buttons, and just generally say thanks, because we sit here chatting away because we love it, but we also like it if you click those buttons because
click
it
the like
keeps
button.
us going.
Push
That's it for
the
us
buttons.
today. Thank you.
This was a solid video. I thought it was fascinating. I know they're doing similar stuff like this, that they'll be like releasing more of this like content. They're really knowledgeable. Like, they talked quite a bit for only a couple pages of lore. Yeah, there was some like interpretation, extrapolation, but overall I thought it was really cool to learn about this because I was like, what is a dragon ogre? And they're big and bad, to say the least. Their live streams are definitely pretty long, but I like how this one was like trimmed up.